Alright, the purpose of this video is to help you in laying out your project parts on rough boards. We're going to use a top as an example. This top is already all glued up. It's made up of 4 separate boards. The width of those boards can be any dimension. They don't have to be the same width. We're aiming for 14 inches wide and 20 inches long. So when we go to rough cut our boards, we're going to keep them 21 inches long. And the combination of the boards, we're going to aim for at least a ½ inch bigger because we may need to joint edges for creating clean, tight joints. So we're going to go for at least 14.5, maybe up to 15 inches for the combination of our board widths. This is the board I selected to build the top. We're going to take all the pieces out of this one board so we have a similar grain pattern. So the first thing you want to do is inspect your board. Make sure we're going to avoid major defects. Here we have knots, another knot there and there, some discoloration. We have a little bit of weighing on the edges here. They don't affect the thickness of the board too much, so we could probably include them. Just as a note here though, this board next to me, this has much deeper weighing, taking off more of the corner, so we can't use the full width of that board if that were the board we were using. On the end here I do have a split. You probably can't see it very well. If I flip this board on here, it goes all the way from here to the end. So I'm going to make a note of that because we always look at the side that looks worse, but in this case we have some knots, although I'm not going to worry about those knots. We can keep those to the bottom. So in this case, because I'm ignoring the knots, I'm going to lay out on this side, lay out my pieces, so that I can pay attention to where that split is. It doesn't mean we just need to chop this off and throw it away. It just means that we need to keep our pieces to the side of the split so we don't include it. So now I'm ready to start laying out the pieces. Again, we're going for 20 inches long, so every mark that we make here for the length of our pieces, we're marking at 21. Each piece needs to be 21, so we have that extra length so we have some to do a square cut and then later on cut it to final length. So I'm going to mark this. I can just make a real big mark. It's just a rough cut. It has an extra inch. And instead of moving the tape measure, I'm just going to add 21 to 21. So I can mark 42 here. And then I can mark 63. So I've luckily fallen short of where the splits were. If I needed to include the splits, I could always go another piece if I needed it. And we have to check the width yet. But I'm going to mark this at 21 just in case we need some more width, because I could use about 2 inches to this side of the split and then probably 2.5 inches here. And I may not need it for the top, but I could always use these pieces for, I don't know, for this is top of a table, so maybe these would work for legs. But going back here, now that I have the lengths marked out, I knew that I was going to need at least 3 pieces, so I did all 3 at once. But you'll need to inspect how wide is your board. We're going for final 14, so we're looking to at least have a combination of 14.5 with our pieces added together. So I would like to, this board is about 5 3/4. So to keep it simple, we'll use up as much of this board as we can. So we're going to cut these. We've marked our length. Notice that we marked the length, and I'm going to write on here the width that we're going to cut it to when we get to the table saw. That keeps it nice and simple. When we get to the table saw, we don't need to measure our board and figure out how wide we're cutting. We just look at the dimension that we wrote on the board, and that's what we're ripping it to. Now 5.5 actually allows a little bit. We're going to need to joint one edge over here, so we're going to lose a little bit. And then when we rip our board parallel on the table saw, we're going to lose a little bit on the other side. So you can never get a board final width what it measures rough, because you're going to lose some on each side. So keep that in mind. So I have 5.5 there. Looks like I can get the same here. So 5.5 plus 5.5 is 11. So I could and we are getting close to some wane here on this edge, I really only need a 4-inch piece on the end here, and that'll get me to plenty. I could probably even go 3.5. That'll get me 14.5 inches. We need it bigger again than 14 because once we cut these pieces apart, we may need to joint some edges so that they fit tight together. Some other things, so we've laid out all 3 of our parts. Make sure you label your parts. So I'm going to put T for top for each of these. I'm also going to put my name and hour. For you as students, it's important that you do that, so in case pieces get mixed around inside the storage cages, we can find your pieces. So name, I'm not going to write out my name for all these, but name and hour. And that is it. Once you get all this laid out, you can come to me to get checked, and then after I check your work, you're free to cut on the rough cut miter saw. One last thing to note is that you always lay out your largest pieces first. We lay it at our top, and those are the largest pieces for what this project is. But always lay out your largest pieces first, so then your other pieces can fit where you have room on your board. And for small pieces, always check scrap, make sure you can use that up. You can sort through it, look for common grain patterns, but we want to use up scrap whenever we can as well.